Okay.
Okay. Should we start?
हम ही लो.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fifth edition of our career series by CSV, or Combined Social Ventures. CSV brings together the alumni of the Chevening, Gurukul, and CRISP fellows who have spent time at the University of Oxford. And this is our program to reach out to as many students in STEM and young professionals to help them in the early part of their career journeys. We also have an annual in person gathering, but this is our way of reaching out and continuing to stay connected through the year. So we've had a few sessions so far, and we have with us again Suparna Kapoor, who has had a long career as an engineer in an leading aeronautics company. Hi, Suparna. And Suparna and her has done a lot of work on leadership, training, coaching, and building up future leaders. She now runs her own firm called LQ on leadership, learning, and life. And we're very excited to have her. She has a very interesting topic for us today, which is a little different, and we hope that you will enjoy the conversation that we have. So over to you, Suparna.
Hi, Smita, thank you so much for the introduction, and good to be back here once again with something new, and I hope it will be useful for everybody who's listening. So I think I can share my slide.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I hope it's visible.
Yes.
Visible and I'm audible, right?
Yes, both.
Yeah, both.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm loud enough for people to hear. Yeah, so the topic, and we've decided that after a lot of discussion, because uh, even though we feel that technology is something that's happening today, we are doing this for STEM students, but on the other side, we also feel as a community, we feel that what is also important is the ability to be able to be in a state of well-being, and that's how this entire topic was designed, and which you're calling it as engineering happiness, the science and skill of. And this is a tagline I pulled because it's science and it's a practice both. So how do we go about improving our well-being and lead a thriving life? And that's also what my work is a lot around, and that's why I call my organization as Learning Leadership Life, because I believe that all of these three things are integrated. You can't lead unless you are, in a way, you are leading a holistic life and are able to balance yourself well. Um, so what we are going to cover in this short module is what do we mean by thriving? What is this whole science of happiness, and why I say this? Because as an engineer, when first time I heard this whole idea that there's a science behind happiness, I was pretty intrigued, because I always thought that happiness was a state of mind. It was a emotion. It was more like something which was abstract in nature. And as an engineer, when I realized that there's a science behind it, so that was intriguing. So what's the science behind that, and how do we manage our stress and overload, and how do we create our own plan to improve our level of happiness and well-being and lead a thriving life? So that's all that the program is going to cover. And my first question to everyone out here, and we can respond with a yes or no on the chat, is do we all want to live a happy life and also fulfill our potential, where we feel satisfied and believe that we are living the best life that we can in that particular moment? So yes or no. I know it's a more a rhetoric question than a real question, because I'm sure every one of us will say a yes to it. We all want to do that, but the question is how, because m- many times most of us are struggling in many ways, and it's not an individual struggle as much as it is a human struggle. And this is what we are going to see. So how do we, um, within that human struggle, how do we find our own individual ways of leading a more fulfilling and life which can help us to whatever that we want to do with our life. So assuming that it's a yes, and what does it actually mean when we say we want to thrive in a world of pressure, deadlines, juggling multiple projects, uh, managing change that's all around us, whether it is in terms of climate or technology or even politics? We have seen some results come in yesterday itself. Any of that. So, how do we actually thrive in a world that's so dynamic, so volatile in its own ways? Um, how do we do that? And when we look at this word thriving, it may be an English dictionary word, but in positive psychology, thriving has a very scientific perspective. And the scientific combination of the word thriving means that when we are feeling good about ourselves and our life, when we are functioning well, uh, and when I say well means to the best of the abilities that we can in that moment, in the given situation. There's no one definition of well here. When we have the ability to grow through challenges, and it's a little beyond resilience, because resilience is the ability to bounce back. But when we bounce back, have we also grown in the process, and have we come back with a with better abilities, with a better mind frame? So it's really about that, and the ability to use our strengths in the work that we do, in the life that we lead. So as per positive psychology, and when we say positive psychology, it is a add-on to psychology, in a way that psychology normally looks at people who have challenges with their mental wellness. For example, people dealing with depression or any other form of challenge in that area. But positive psychology looks at normal human beings like you and me, who do not have so-called mental ailment that I need to go to a psychologist. But even where we are, how can we become better? How can we improve our life? And how can we be happier? And that's the whole idea of positive psychology. And the four things that I mentioned here: feeling good, functioning well, growing through challenges, and using your strengths, is what positive psychology defines as thriving. So why is this idea, whether we say it positive psychology or whether we call it happiness, why does it matter so much in today's world? Why is there so much attention everywhere that we are talking about it? One, of course, COVID has made a huge impact, but this whole idea of happiness and well-being and positive psychology had been going on for a couple of decades before that. And why this is so important? Because research, and this is where I call that the whole idea is a science, because there has been very thorough research by some of the best universities across the world, which has which has very clearly identified that when we are happier, our creativity improves, we have more ability to solve our problems, there's more balance and resilience within us, we become better team players. That means the teamwork improves. We become better leaders also. So people who are happier, who have a higher level of well-being, are much, much better leaders. And there's enough and more research to prove that. Of course, our health improves. That's a immediate takeaway from there. Our relationships become better. Uh, People leave organizations lesser, so that means the the turnaround that happens in organization reduces. So there are n number of benefits that come both to individuals as well as organizations when individual level of happiness improves. And that is why this area has become so much more significant. And this is something we know as early as possible in our lives, the better we have the ability to be able to build our lives in that particular way. And that's the whole idea why we are talking about it today. Because as students who are present here, if we are able to if you are able to imbibe some of these ideas and build it into your daily routines, then as you progress, whether it is your studies or your careers, it will help you in multiple ways, not only in living a better life, but becoming better professionals, by becoming better friends, by becoming improving your health in all areas of your life. And in fact, last week only I did a session for startup founders, because research is telling that startup founders have a very high rate of burnout, and I know a lot of you sitting here have these ideas of turning entrepreneurs, uh, or ideas around starting a startup. So even if you are keen on working in that particular area, remember, this is one thing that is really, really important. In fact, it has become so important uh, that we are actually, based on the session that we did, we are thinking that we need to design some more deeper interventions to work with startup founders. So this is an area that has become important, not only in organizations, for students, for startup founders everywhere across the world. But today the session is designed specifically for you. And when we talk about students or professionals, one of the biggest challenges that each one of us is facing is our constant interaction with technology, and that by itself creates a lot of stress for us. It reduces our attention span. It puts strains on our ability to think, and uh, ability to focus on work effectively. So if you look at the tech trap, and this is again coming from research, is that when we keep switching our attention between one thing to other, like for example, we are uh, on our mobiles looking through reels for a long time, we are looking at Facebook. So when we keep doing that, it actually drains our productivity. And you would have experienced it yourself, that when you've been on any of these, especially on your mobiles or any of these social platforms, a 1 hour of that is not energizing. It's actually very, very draining. And research is also saying the same thing. When we have too many notifications coming to us constantly, it puts a overload on our brain. Our brain goes in a freeze mode. It doesn't know what to do, because brain has a certain capacity by which it can process data. So and that is why one of the things that is told, that reduce the number of notifications on your mobile phone, because the more notifications we have, the more difficult it becomes for us to focus. Multitasking is supposed to be the buzzword of today's organizational life, or even corporate world that we are talking about. But multitasking actually decreases efficiency. When we are focused on one task at a time, we are able to perform much better. Our brain works better. So multitasking is definitely not the thing that helps us complete our task. It is doing one thing, having focus, that helps us do that. um, if we are too much on technology, it reduces real human connections. And eventually, we are all human beings, and what we seek is connection. When we interact with people in the real world, there's a shift in our energies that happen. There's an emotional exchange that happens. There's emotional contagion. So when we are with somebody who's in a happier mood, we ourselves become happy. So when we do all of that on social platforms or using technology, then our ability to connect in the real world reduces, and eventually all of us have to go out and work in the real world only, and handle real people. So that becomes a challenge. We get driven by patterns and programming. We all know that once we watch one type of series on a OTT channel, there's a pattern that comes every time. They will recommend only one kind of series for you. In similar way, we've seen it on social platforms. So we become driven by patterns, and the program that is being controlled by somebody outside of us. It is not in our control at all, what we see, what we watch, whom we connect with. And that's the trap of technology. So how do we actually get out of this trap and live a life that is more real, more authentic, and that energizes us rather than draining us? And we are able to do that when our physical, our mental, our emotional, and social selves are in coherence. That means we have physical well being, our bodies are feeling well, our minds are feeling well, we have good thoughts, that are going around in our mind. Emotions are balanced, and we have social connections and networks that enable us uh, to wade through life challenges. So, if all of these are in coherence, that's when we lead our best lives. And this is also something that WHO has told that for human well being, there has to be physical well being, mental well being, emotional well being, social well being, and it actually adds another dimension, which is the spiritual well being. But we'll maybe not talk about that so much, because even if we look at these four factors, that becomes very important for us to be able to do that. Any questions at this point of time, or we can move forward? Okay. So, moving on. So, like I said when we started the session, is that there's a science behind happiness. So, what is that science, and what is that science telling us, and how is that information relevant to us? So, one of the most important things that science has told us, and specifically the science of happiness, and this is a research that comes by Sonja Lyubomirsky, who's a very, very known researcher in the area of positive psychology, and she has done this research across countries, across cultures, lakhs of people, different age groups, different levels of education, social strata, everything, a very wide variety of people. And what she has learned about happiness, and I can just put it in one diagram that tells us a lot, is that our happiness is 50% genetic in nature. That means all of us are born with a DNA that in some ways defines our level of happiness. Uh, and possibly this is something we may have noticed not so much in ourselves, but in others. We know that there are certain people who are always grumpy, there are certain people who are always happy. So there is something that we are born with, uh, and that is defined by our genes, that's coded in our DNA. Even though there is another field of study that is emerging, which is called epigenetics, which says that we can actually redefine how our genes or our DNA operate by changing our lifestyle and our environment around us. But we'll not go there right now. But right now we'll just see this as a fact that 50% of our happiness is determined by our genetics. 10% is determined by external circumstances, which means the country that we are born with, the family that we are born into, our physical appearances, some of these things which are more external, the social strata we are into. Um, all of those things define our external happiness, the life circumstances that happen to us, because none of that is in our control at all. Um, so only 10% of our happiness is actually determined by all of those things. We very often we think that a lot of our happiness is defined by what happens outside of us, but that's really not the truth. Only it impacts only 10% of our happiness, and these are not absolute numbers. This is a broad framework for us to understand what really happiness is and what it means for us um, in uh, in a broad way, and what is that we can do about it to change something about our happiness. So there is just to kind of put a little attention on this um, external circumstances. So there is a guy called Nick Vujicic, and he's written a lot of books. You can find a lot of his videos on so on in public domain. So if you look at him, he's a guy who's born with no hands and no legs. And one of his books defines, and his book is called, I think it's called Beyond Limits or No Limits, something like that. And what he says is that till I was very young, I was very much defined by how I looked and the disabilities that I had. But eventually, he says, I realized that that does not define who I am, that does not define the life I lead, that does not define how happy I feel about the life I lead. And if you read some of uh, his books or his posts or his articles or see his videos, you can see that he's living a much fuller life than many of us sitting here. He's married, he has kids, he's done some of the most adventurous things across the world. He does horse riding, swimming, anything. So even if we look at external circumstances, it is not what happens to us that defines us, but how we deal with what happens to us that defines us. And that is why even the 10% is a number. But let's bring our attention to the 40% that is in our control. That is something that we can work with. And that is our actions and thoughts. So 40% of our happiness is defined by our own actions and thoughts. And this is our power zone. This is what we call engineering our happiness by our own actions and by our own thoughts. Smita, do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, whenever you're taking questions.
Okay, right, right. If you have something right now, we can,
I was just wondering
yeah,
that, you know, the very impressionable ages of the teenage years that students go through, and as they're completing school, going into college, really forming their personalities till they enter the workforce. It is such a time of vulnerability and exploration, and still finding yourself, identifying, creating your own identity. It's a time of great exploration where things are not clearly formed. Your own identity is not clearly formed. And it was always there where you depend on the approval of your peers. You want people to like you want to be popular. And now it has reached an extreme level with social media and device dependence, where everything is about likes and validation and
yes.
approval. Now, in this scenario, how can young people really remember this? I mean, how to balance that with the reality of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Because it is so polarized, and they are so dependent on peer likes and peer approval, which leads to a lot of social problems, individually, in society and community. Um, how can they better balance uh, themselves? Do you have any guidance?
Yeah, and that's a very significant question, and I think that question is not only relevant for students. I think it is as relevant for even us today because with so much of social media happening, sometimes people like us who are so-called matured people also kind of fall into these traps of comparing ourselves with others on the different platforms that you're talking about. So and especially at that age, of course, the pressures and the need for acceptance is way higher than possibly at any age. So and it's not that there is some one solution for it. There's no magic wand or something that we can tell that okay, you do this and this problem will go away. I think it's a set of uh, practices that we build in our daily life, a sense of awareness of our own self as well as what's happening around her, and kind of uh, having some, what should I say? Uh, some balancing practices in your life. And as we go on, is that's what we are going to talk about it. And if still we feel that that question remains unanswered, we can actually
Great.
have something more around that. But
Thank you.
that's the whole thing, and that's the whole idea of the diagram that we are showing here. Because, like you very rightly said, we are often driven by the external circumstances, what's happening around us, the likes, the dislikes, and all of those things, the conversations and all that. So and that's really not in our control. So I always say that uh, how we respond. So events happen around us, uh, and we are able to change the outcome of whatever that event is only by the response that we have. That's the only control that we have. How do we respond to a particular situation? Now, the response can come from a very patterned, programmed way, or the response can come from a very aware way. And
Right.
that's why it's I think that's a really power tool that I feel I have discovered, and I keep talking about it, but I know that unless people experience that, they don't understand how powerful it is. But I always say it's a power tool is to take a moment of pause before any significant thing that you do. So
Nice.
when that programming comes that, oh, I I didn't get as many likes, or I got trolled in somewhere, there's a patterned response that will come from inside of me. I should write this, I should revert back in this way, or I should just go off everything. So can we just take a pause and say, okay, this is happening. Let me just take a few deep breaths. And the moment we do that, answers often come, because then my brain is not responding from a pattern, it is responding from very conscious thinking, and our brain and our has a great ability to give us answers actually. The only problem is we've stopped listening to it and we are listening more to the tech around us. So I think that is one way, but as we go along, I know it's a very long answer to
No,
your
no, it's very good. And
question.
the tech is listening to us and then feeding us what we want. So
Of course, of
I'll
course.
let you continue.
Yes.
Thanks.
So yeah, so this 40% is what is in our power. This is our code for engineering, if or designing our lives the way we want it to be, for improving our well-being. And that doesn't mean the external challenges will not come. They will come. Life has its own way of handling us, the ups and downs. None of us have control. It's almost like what Buddha said, that show me a house where there has not been somebody who's not died. So in similar way, show me a person who is not struggling with something right now. So we all struggle with something. That struggle is very, very real, and it's very, very human. But despite all of that struggle, there is still some power that we have with us that can shift us to a more balanced way of existence. So what is that? And these are all science and research based. So Martin Seligman, who's the father of positive psychology, he's done immense amount of work in the area of thriving. And this is a very short, crisp way that I can put it out there. There's a whole lot of research, and each of these areas can actually go in much deeper. We can actually do a week worth of program, and still people not might not get the whole idea of it. But just to give it very quickly, uh, five areas that we can pay attention to. First is our body. Uh, how is my body? How is there enough movement in my body? Uh, am I physically aware of the requirements of my body? Whether it is in terms of sleep, whether it is in terms of exercise, whether it is in terms of food. Am I feeding my body well? Am I taking care of my body well? So I'm saying movement, but it is around the body. So one simple practice that we can introduce into our daily routine is 1 2 minutes of stretching every 60 minutes that we sit, or half an hour that we sit, doing at least 20 minutes of exercise every day. And for students specifically, I'd mentioned that short walk between study blocks. So any form of physical activity that we can introduce in a day, especially because our bodies are not designed for sitting, our bodies are designed for moving. So they say the sitting is the new smoking, right? How much do we sit in a day? And we can't escape that sitting. It is part of the work that we do, the studies that we do. But within that, can we stretch our bodies a little bit? Can we keep our spines a little erect, our head a little taller, shoulders a little broader? Just being very aware of our bodies and doing that 1 or 2 minutes of stretching or moving our bodies after every 1 hour. That's a very powerful way by which the well-being of our body increases, because our body and mind are connected. When our body feels confident, our mind also feels confident. When our body feels energetic, our mind also thinks good thoughts. And that's the connection. So next comes, obviously comes the mind. And when we talk of our mind, it's our thoughts, it's our ability to focus, it is our ability to solve problems. All of that comes from our mind. So one very quick hack that we can actually introduce into our routines, and I know lot of you will not agree with me on that, but there's enough research, and if you would have been in a physical session with me, I could have in 2 minutes shown how multitasking is very less effective versus doing a single focus task. So picking up just one task and seeing that can I focus on it for 15 minutes without any interruptions, and see how well you are able to do that particular task when there is no interruption, whether you want to put your mobile away, uh, whether you want to close the door of your room, whatever that you want to do, but 15 minutes of single task focus uninterrupted. And that's a very powerful way to bring our mind back into focus. Of course, another very quick way is to focus on your own breath, because the moment we are focused on our own breath, that in that moment we are always present, we are very mindful, and mindfulness actually improves our mood, improves our energy, improves our well-being. So movement, mind, mood, right? So when we say mind, focus on single task. When we say mood, that focus of 15 minutes, can we bring that focus into every moment that uh, we are doing something? And that's what we call mindfulness. And pause is something I've already spoken to Smita about. The other thing is, when we are having a food, can we eat with awareness? In fact, can we do everything that we do with awareness? And I know that's really, really difficult. So when we are eating, am I am I aware of what I am eating? Am I aware of of the smell, the taste, the flavor of the food that we are eating? Or am I busy with my gadgets? I'm busy watching TV, and in the process I don't know actually what I'm eating and how much I'm supposed to eat. So research tells us that one of the ways of managing your weight is to eat with awareness, because then the signal between the body and the mind runs at a quick rate. Our bodies can tell our minds very, very quickly when it is full. But when we eat without awareness, there's a delay. And much after we feel full, do we realize that we've actually eaten much more. So, one small hack that we can introduce is to eat with awareness. It could be a small sandwich that you are eating, a Coke that you are drinking. It could be just about anything. But in that, am I aware? Am I am I also aware how that is nourishing my body? So that becomes an activity that we can introduce into our daily life. And I'm not asking you to do anything that is outside of our ability. All of this is with resources that we already have. And the resources are our body, our mind, and our breath, our awareness. The next thing that we can look at is having a focus on what are our dreams and aspirations, and am I actually doing things that are meaningful for me? So, keeping your dreams, your aspirations, your purpose at a center of whatever that we do. And it is not, and there's nothing harm in saying that I want to earn a lot of money. If that is your dream right now, that's stay with that. But am I actually doing what needs to be done to be able to achieve that? And that becomes very important in our daily work that we do, because as we say, the work expands to the time that we have. Many time what happens is that the day goes by and we are not able to really understand that what we are doing is actually adding on to what we want to achieve for ourselves. So that check-in becomes important. It is also important specifically for students, because there'll be lot of fads that will keep coming around and telling you that, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should do this kind of work, you should join this kind of industry. But in that moment, really checking in with yourself, is this aligned with what who I want to be? and the dreams and aspirations that I have for myself. And if I do this, would it be the best way for me to be able to achieve that? And that becomes important. So adding some sense of meaning in our daily routines, and the best way to stay connected to meaning is connection to our own desires and dreams. And there's a word for Japanese word for it, which is called ikigai. And ikigai is my reason for getting up in the morning. So what's your reason for getting up in the morning and every day and doing what we are supposed to do? So that's another hack that we can introduce into our daily routines. Um, and of course, the last one is connection. So happiness research tells us that people who have meaningful connection, and I'm not talking here about social connections, I'm not talking here about the number of followers that you have on Instagram or any of the social platform. I am here talking about real meaningful connections, and these could be your family, your very close friends, but people whom you can actually reach out to when you have problem. And research tells us that people who have good social connections, meaningful social connections, are the people who live longer, who live more healthier lives, who are able to achieve more in life. They're more successful. Their life is really, really fulfilling in multiple ways. So now, in today's socially connected world, can we create real micro moments of connection? And this could be just checking in with a friend or having a conversation that is energizing for you, or even sharing something that's a challenge for you with somebody whom you know you can trust. So creating a real moment of connection uh, with somebody who's part of your network, or it could just be somebody, even somebody you don't know. In fact, one of the most interesting things and most energizing things that are happening to me, because I'm traveling a lot, is my conversations with Uber drivers. I'm I have had some really, really meaningful conversations with Uber drivers, and I have learned and have been inspired by them in so many ways. And these are moments. So I when I'm sitting in a car and I have to travel 1 hour, I can be on my phone and just finish off my task and be with that, or I can actually create a real moment connection with somebody. Not that I will remember that person or that person will remember me, but in that moment I have something in me has changed. I feel happier. I feel more sense of well-being. And I feel a sense of human connection. And that is what really makes our life more meaningful, happier, and thriving. So that is another hack that we can introduce, and that also gets us off the gadgets that we are constantly hooked on to. So these are just very small 5 things. And just to kind of give you a real practice or real taste of it, we'll just do one small mini practice. It'll take us a minute or two. And what we can do is we can sit straight as we can. If possible, our feet touching the ground, and closing our eyes. And what we are going to do is what we call as box breathing. So box breathing basically, and some may call it meditation, but I simply call it a process of 1 or 2 minutes of breathing. And what we are going to do is we are going to uh, first we are going to take a very deep breath and really empty ourselves. And then we are going to inhale for 4 seconds, hold our breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then again hold our breath for 4 seconds. And we will do this cycle for 3 times, and then we can slowly open our eyes. And I will count the 1, 2, 3, 4. I will not do, I'll keep my eyes open. I'll keep count the 1, 2, 3, 4, and all of the others here can actually take a minute or two and do this box breathing. So if we are ready, we can close our eyes, sit as straight as possible. Take a couple of very deep breaths. Take a deep breath in and out. If you want to release it through your mouth once, you can do that. Just empty yourself. And now we will start with the box breathing. So take a deep breath in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take a deep breath again. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. If anyone can let me know if they felt any shift within themselves. If you did this, if you felt a shift. And this is one practice if we do even 2 or 3 times a day, or anytime we are feeling very overwhelmed, very emotional, uh, we feel that we are not able to handle what's happening. Just that 1 minute of, uh, 1 or 2 minutes of box breathing can actually shift our energies and bring more clarity to ourselves. And this is not spirituality. This is not gyan. This is real research-based practices. And research has shown that just about um, few minutes of any mindfulness breathing exercise that we do can rewire our brain in less than a week, and that's the ability of some of these practices that we are talking about. um, the next is the chemistry of our brain. This is something that I find the most interesting. So these are the four hormones that are called the happiness hormones that are there inside our bodies. Our body is a chemical factory which has the ability to release lots of hormones and lots of uh, chemicals which help us digest this, that, but these are specifically the hormones that impact our happiness. And these are dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin, and serotonin. And this is what we call the dose. So dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. So the daily dose is what I call it. So whatever that we had spoken about. So endorphin comes when we move our bodies, when we do exercise. That's where endorphin is released. Oxytocin comes from connection, comes from the human connect, the physical touch that we have with people. Dopamine comes from having some meaning and purpose when we have some achievements in our life. That's where dopamine comes from. And serotonin comes from things like being in nature or being aware of some of the mindful practices that we were speaking about. So, all of these practices enable a release of hormones inside our bodies, which automatically improve our level of well being. So, this is the science. And if we are able to bring in practices that are small practices that are able to impact the release of these hormone inside our bodies, our wellness automatically improves. And the in the previous slide that we had put in, these practices are connected to one or other of the hormones that we are speaking about. So if we are able to introduce these practices into our daily routine, that's how we engineer or design our routine and subsequently our life for well-being and thriving. And this is what I call the ultimate hack for thriving. If nothing else that you do, no other practice that you include in your daily routines, but this one practice. And this is, again, this is not spirituality, though it falls under spirituality, but this is science. Science has told us that people who have this practice of remembering three good things that happened to them just before they go to sleep and being thankful for those three things, If they do that for a week, their wellness levels improves drastically, and they so enjoy it that they keep continuing to doing this activity. And this is a research that Martin Seligman had done with college students like you. And he had asked them to just do this one practice of, before they go to sleep, can they remember three good things that happened to them? And why this is important, because in today's world, specifically what Smita was saying, there is so much comparison, there is so much sense of lack that we are programming ourselves for, that we forget that we already have a lot. There's a lot that's going on in our life. There's a lot of good that's happening to us. And the moment we remember that, that's how our well-being gets affected. And there's a small story that I remember on that. So there's this. I mean, it's a story only. So there is this person who, after his death, reaches this whatever heaven or whatever that we believe that we go to once we die. So he reaches this place and he sees um, two kind of office spaces, and two set of people, angels, working in these two office spaces. So he asked, what is this? I'm quite surprised that you people have offices like what we have in on earth. And he asked that, what are these places? And what he saw in these places, that one place there was just this couple of people, one angel and one person along with that, and that place was really really empty, and there was no activity happening in that place. But the other place was like full of action and activity, and everybody was running around. There's a huge team of people working there, and there was this head angel who was directing people to do what they're supposed to do. And he was very quite intrigued by what was happening, and he asked, what is this? And the person next to him says that the first office, which seems very very busy, is a place which collects requests from people on earth. So constantly people keep asking things. I want this, I want a job, I want a, a partner, I want money, I want a great car, I want house. And all the people in that team are just working to just fulfilling the needs that people are asking, the things that people are asking. And that is why they are so busy, because continuously people keep asking one thing or other. He then asked, then what's the other office that seems so empty and there's hardly anything happening there? So he said, that's the place where people say thank you after their wishes are granted. But sadly, nobody says thank you after the wishes are granted. And that's why this particular office has absolutely no work to do. And that is possibly a human trapping, right? That we always seeking what we don't have, but we forget what we have. And the moment we remember what we have, our lives can actually change. And gratitude is magical. Gratitude has the power to transform our lives. And I'm speaking from personal experience, because when I introduced this practice into my daily being, my life transformed. And now, though, it has almost become like a part of my DNA. And it's not as much as a religious spiritual practice, as much as a way of being that it has become. And it has that power. And I'm not speaking only from science, I'm speaking also from experience and practice. So if nothing else that you do, if you introduce this one practice in your day, that can actually shift a lot of things from you. And uh, it has the ability to transform our lives, can shift the way we feel about ourselves, the anxieties that we have, the pressures that we feel. This is one, uh, in Hindi, there's a word called Brahmas. So this is like a Brahmas, that if we can develop this one practice for ourselves, it has a lot of meaning and impact on our lives. So we can design our own life, we can design our own plan. And what we are asking is not that you drastically change your life, you drastically change your habits. Just one small change, one small practice, which is just even a 1% shift. So for example, today, if after this session tomorrow, even once in a day, you remember to take a pause or take a deep breath, that's a 1% shift for yourself. And that 1% shift for 365 days has the ability to really transform your life. And you can see, this is a diagram that is from a book called Tiny Habits, that it can make your life 37 times better by the end of a year. That's the power of small tiny shifts and small tiny gains. So what we can do is design our own life. Pick one activity that you think you can do for a week. Do that, practice it daily, track the shift, see if it has changed something for you. Then maybe after a week or two, add one more small thing that you can do that can further enhance that shift, and so on and so forth. And that's how we can actually design our life for success and thriving. And that's possibly also our wish for each one of you here. And because it's not only about you becoming better as an individual, it's also about the communities become better, societies become better, our nation becomes better, the world becomes better. So the stakes for us are very high, and that's why we are talking about all of this. So that's the way we can design and engineer our lives for well-being. And possibly that's all that I had to say. In closing, remember, happiness is not just a state, it's a skill, it's an ability, it's a practice. We can learn to be happy. And we can learn to be happy by adding some of these micro practices that we are speaking about. And each one of us here has the power to engineer our own well being, just one hack at a time. That's all that I had to share. There any questions? Thank you very much. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you scan this QR code. Open for questions, and wishing each one of you all the very best in your journey. Thank you.
Wow, Suparna. That was fantastic. I wish someone had told me this when I was starting out. We have kind of come to this in the long, hard way. So I think it's really valuable insights and lessons. And I love the thing of just changing, doing something small, one tiny practice, and otherwise, even this could get overwhelming apart from everything else that fills our days. But this is very doable. So thank you for sharing such clear, easy steps. It's wonderful. If we have any questions, or we can stay open for a while.
Thank you, Smita. I just hope it is useful for students, and I think possibly your question also got answered in the
Yes,
process.
yes, yes.
Yes.
I think in that it's and the one thing to kind of share with students and people in the early parts of their careers while they're still building out and growing, and where you're dependent on a lot of other people, is really two things. One is to take the time to respond rather than reacting. That difference, it takes time to understand, because we're very quick to react, and we take things personally.
Yeah.
So I think taking that, what you said, take a step back, take a pause, really gives a much better perspective. And at the end of the day, never to forget that you are in charge of yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody else is.
That,
So if you give away your power to somebody else, and your happiness depends on what somebody else thinks of you, um, you're doing yourself and your power a big disservice. So I hope that, and sometimes we learn this much later in life. We learn it the hard
absolutely.
way.
Absolutely.
So it's nice to
Yeah.
get this learning early
Yeah.
in our careers. So
That's true. So I call, I mean, like, I am a happiness coach, and a lot of people ask me that uh, one, what made you do that? And second, are you always happy because you are a happiness coach? So I always say no. And I also think I think the people who teach or train something are the people who have struggled with it a lot. And
absolutely.
I think it's my own personal struggle with happiness that has brought me there. And so a lot of things that I share is also from very personal experience. And like you said, no, I wish somebody had taught me this when I was in my 20s, 30s. But, and the second, of course, I'm also not always happy, but I know that the power lies with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been a great shift for me. And I'm hope that at least people who hear can also make
Same
that
thoughts.
small shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
Amit.
because one of the like other than what Smita has already shared, I think happiness is a skill is a word that will stay with me. And very rightly, if we had practiced this right from the childhood, like practice happiness,
Yeah,
it would have probably made the difference much earlier in life.
absolutely.
But nevertheless, I think the students who are hearing this probably would think about it and and all that you have said, which will be really helpful. So thanks a lot, Suparna. It was
Thanks, Amita. Thank you for being
fascinating.
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Thank you, Subalna. We feel that you are speaking from the heart. That feeling we got.
Okay, right. Thank
Excellent,
you.
excellent talk. Is the need of the time. As Smita has told, some people will realize. Many of the people realize this after long career burnouts. No,
Yeah.
so it's very interesting and very interesting. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, James, and thank you all
Thank you.
of you for being here and supporting me here. So thanks
So
for that.
just to let everybody know, please connect with us on csvunlimited.com, which is our website. We also have a LinkedIn page, CSV Unlimited. So do connect and do follow us, and look out for our monthly webinars, which will continue. So thank you again for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.